There are two parts to this talk. In the first part, I will introduce Picasso, probably the most important painter of the 20th century. Using as reference 7 women that were significant in his life, I will show you a choice of images of works he did while he lived with every one of them. The first was Fernanda Olivier, a French model who later wrote an interesting autobiographical book about their relationship called Loving Picasso. The second was Eva Well, also a French model who died of tuberculosis at the age of 30. His third relationship was with Olga Goklova, a Russian-born ballerina who became his first wife and gave him his first son, Paolo. She was followed by Marie-Thérèse Voltaire, a teenager almost 3 decades younger than him, who gave him his first daughter, Maya. Marie-Thérèse had a tragic end. 4 years after the death of Picasso, she committed suicide by hanging herself in her garage in France. The fifth woman was Dora Maar, a talented photographer, daughter of a Yugoslavian architect, a couple of years older than Marie-Thérèse. After Dora came Françoise Gillot, a very young French painting student who gave him 2 more children, Claude and Paloma. When they met, Picasso was over 60. Gillot also wrote an interesting book about their relationship called Life with Picasso. Jacqueline Roquet was Picasso's last relationship. She was a French divorcee with a child. When they met, Picasso was in his 70s and she was 27. A few years later, his first wife Olga died of cancer, and Picasso married Jacqueline. Like Marie-Thérèse, 13 years after Picasso's death, Jacqueline shot herself. I will talk particularly about 7 works chosen from each one of the 7 periods. My choice includes 6 very well-known key paintings, as well as 4 etchings taken from the Vollard suite. Hopefully, I will be able to demonstrate why I have chosen them from the rest. In the second part, I will give you the details of the bombing of the Basque town of Guernica, carried out by Hitler under instructions of Franco, the Spanish dictator. This massacre became the theme for Picasso's painting, which was commissioned by the Republican government to represent Spain in the International Paris Exhibition of 1937. I will comment on the making of this large monochromatic canvas, which, although portraying one particular slaughter, it has become an icon that symbolizes the atrocities of any war. Much has been said and written about Picasso, and as it is the norm with people that become famous, it is difficult to know what is true and what isn't. He was baptized with the name of Pablo, Diego, José, Francisco de Paulo, Juan Nepomuceno, María de los Remedios, Crispín, Cipriano, Santísima Trinidad, Ruiz, Picasso. He was born at home, in the Andalusian city of Malaga, in the last week of October. At first they believed that he was dead, because he was not breathing. But his uncle, who was a doctor, blew smoke into his face from the cigar he was smoking, and the child started to cough. In the year 1900, Picasso was 19 years old. His father was a professor of drawing at the art school in Malaga, and from a very early age he taught him drawing techniques that the boy learned very fast. Because of the father's job, Pablo's family had to travel from south to north of the peninsula, following the posts that were offered to him in various Spanish cities. So much moving made it very difficult for him to keep his friendship with other children, and he therefore learned to spend many hours alone, which he dedicated to painting and drawing. When he was not alone, he was surrounded by women. His two sisters, Lola and Conchita, his mother, several aunts like Tia Pepa, as well as a maid. He drew and painted most of them. In these 4 images, he portrays his sister Lola at several stages in her life. And in this drawing we can see Lola with her mother, Doña Maria. When he was 14, his little sister Conchita became seriously ill, and Pablo made an oath. If the child would recover, he would stop painting altogether. Conchita died at the age of 8 of diphtheria, and Picasso dedicated the rest of his life to image making. This photograph, taken by Robert Dosneau, is symbolic. Painting is often described as a window on the immense expanse of the pictorial world. Picasso's hands are pressed against the window panes, and he seems to be ready to set off in another dimension. A great deal has been written regarding this man's ego and on the subject of his difficult character, as well as about his turbulent and passionate relationships with the opposite sex. Yet, the only absolutely true story, if there is one, is in the images he left behind. To give you an idea of the production of this painter, I will say that in the digital comprehensive illustrated catalogue of Enrique Malén, there are 14,425 artworks catalogued. Before I start with the paintings, I like to read 2 quotes from him. The first dating from 1945, talking to Simone Terrin. He said, "What do you think an artist is? An imbecile who only has eyes if he's a painter, ears if he's a musician, or a lyra in every chamber of his heart if he's a poet? Or even if he's a boxer, only some muscles? Quite the contrary. He is at the same time a political being, constantly alert to the horrifying, passionate or pleasing events of the world, shaping himself completely in their image. How is it possible to be uninterested in other men, and by virtue of what cold nonchalance can you detach yourself from a life that they supply so copiously? No, painting is not made to decorate apartments. It is an offensive and defensive weapon against the enemy." And the second, from 9 years earlier in 1936, while talking to Christian Serrault, he said, "Everyone wants to understand art. Why not try to understand the songs of a bird? Why does one love the night, flowers, everything around one, without trying to understand them? But in the case of painting, people have to understand. If only they would realize, above all, that an artist works of necessity, that he himself is only a trifling bit of the world, and no more importance should be attached to him than to plenty of other things which please us in the world, though we can explain them. People who try to explain pictures are usually barking up the wrong tree." It is also my opinion that paintings cannot be explained. What I am trying to do here is to share with you my own personal response as a painter to his work. This painting is a portrait of his friend Carles Casagemas. Picasso painted it in Barcelona the year before the 2 men went to Paris. Carles and Picasso met at the Barcelona art school. He was a poet and painter and the son of a well-to-do army man. They arrived in Paris together for the first time at the end of 1900. Casagemas was not very successful with women. In this delicate drawing, Picasso portrays him accurately as a skinny and introverted character. Carles fell in love with Germaine, a beautiful French lady who worked as a laundress as well as a model. But the lady did not respond to his affections, and he was driven to suicide. The incident took place in Paris at the Boulevard de Clichy. Picasso was in Madrid when Casagemas shot himself. His friend's death devastated him. and he expressed his sorrow in several works.